Christopher Plaza. Chris is a wedding insider. He's unbelievably beautiful floral arrangements, helps with weddings. He has a great story there in Miami of how he got there. Really interesting takes on what happens there and what to look for when searching for somebody with his art and his skill. I really enjoyed the conversation. Some kind of wedding disasters that have happened as well. Very, very interesting. I start off by asking him, with everything coming out of the pandemic and, the political divisiveness and, where we are, is is love increased in our country? Has it decreased? Where does he see that going? I think we can all agree that love can cure a lot of ills if we just kind of see everything in that kind of lens. Christopher Plaza, I think you're going to enjoy this conversation. I certainly did. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission: how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family, in their passion, in their careers, and how it helped them. Our podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Christopher Plaza, but you kind of go by Chris in all your podcasts. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
I listen, you have such great content and you speak about it, and it's just so evident that the overwhelming theme is love. And I just can't help but think, hopefully we're coming out of this pandemic and, with the civil unrest and the political divisive, climate, is the country is love increasing or decreasing, do you feel?
I think it's increasing. I think with everything that we've gone through with the pandemic, everyone is just wanting a fairy tale at this point. We want to see our family, we want to rejoice, we want to celebrate love, and just be together. There's a big spike in engagements, weddings that have been postponed or not happening, now happening.
Hmm.
And the planning continues. I mean, you can pause a lot of things, but you can't stop love. It's going to continue. So yes.
Love will cure so many ills in societies all over the world. Yeah, and so weddings are increasing. That's good to hear.
Oh yeah. We live we're in Miami. So a lot of the postponed or canceled weddings came here, because we've been open for most things, and our restrictions are a little bit
Hmm.
more loose, I should say. But now we're getting back to our normal weddings of 100 people, 130 people. And yeah, we are now in September. It's a little too hot to get
Hmm.
married here in Miami, because it's we're in the dead of summer here. But in October, November, I'll be going back to doing weddings almost every weekend. So yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That's a great time of year there. I'm in the Northeast, unfortunately, and that's a tough time of year, but that's prime time for Miami.
What part?
I'm in New Haven between New York and Boston.
Stop! I'm from Connecticut. I lived in Waterbury. Was born and raised in Bridgeport.
I'm in Wallingford. What a small
Small
world. So you
world.
must miss Pepe's. Do you miss Pepe's
I
pizza?
do. I miss all the pizza in Connecticut. It's
Yeah.
here it's hard to find good pizza.
Yeah. Yeah, but you make it up with your great Cuban food and your great there's so much. I love Miami. We go there every Super Bowl for a guys weekend and absolutely love it. So your husband Jeremy is not only your husband, but he's your partner in all this wedding planning, and you're a florist. Your website is, I don't have an eye for it, but it's just overwhelmingly beautiful. My girlfriend was crying. It's just so beautiful, your arrangements. But my question is, how do you work with your husband? You've got to take that home. That's got to be so tough.
Well, first, thank you so much for the compliment. I it's so me and my husband actually met in philanthropy. He was the head chair of the planning committee for a nonprofit. And it was a gala. So I had just moved here from Connecticut. This was 5 years ago.
Hmm.
And I had did a little bit of planning at the time and also flowers. So they're like, hey, there's this kid that wants to help out with planning, and he looked at my picture and was like, of course, I would love for him to be my assistant. So we started our relationship working together, and then in the process, we fell in love. And so, for a few years, we were working separately. We would work together here and there. He used to do big conferences for science and data. And so he's used to like really production and organizing and things like that. And so around the pandemic, he was in a transition, and my business was taking off in a place where I could barely handle all the work myself.
Hmm.
So he left his job. The pandemic happened, which was actually in a sense a little fortunate for us because he came and he kind of ironed everything out. Like, I'm more of the creative person and like with the flowers, and he's more the administrative person.
Hmm.
And so, he taught me a little bit more about that stuff, and he learned how to do flowers and is a designer now. So, we work really well together. We do get tired of each other,
Hmm.
of course, but we manage to just, sometimes we have our alone time, and he goes to a co-working space, and I go and I do a lot of the face-to-face stuff with meetings. So yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Your content is very amusing and fascinating. I want to get to that in a moment, but uh, everybody wants to have it rain on their wedding day, and that happened with you, and you had to repeat your actual ceremony. So is it good and bad luck?
So it's good luck. I'll say this, my our wedding was very interesting. I will say that everything that I was afraid of happened, and the rain was one of
Hmm.
them. Um, in the end, what was the most important was the wedding, the marriage, and the love. And when it did rain, me and my husband just stood there and we just laughed. I mean, there was really nothing else that we could do. We had to stop it, of course. But it was a beautiful story, and I wouldn't change anything in the world, honestly.
Yeah, it was amusing to kind of hear the story of that, and you actually had to repeat the ceremony. But like you said, it's an important day, but the most important thing is the love. Uh, what are some of the I know you stress about getting a planner. You stress that, when doing a wedding, get it planned, don't do it yourself. What are some of the common mistakes people do when arranging and planning for weddings?
Well, that's the big one I think that you just said is the planner. Like I said earlier, I started off my career doing planning, and me and my husband planned most of our wedding, but we had a day of coordinator, and we had a planner that did help us with more than just a day of stuff. And let me tell you, I don't know what I would have ever done without her. She was
Hmm.
my savior. She was my best friend, my ride or die. um, and I think that other than that, it really just depends on what's important to a couple. I think common mistakes would be, I guess it depends on the budget. That's like the big thing. I think that there's like, your dream wedding and then reality. And unfortunately, like, not everyone has like these huge budgets to have these gorgeous weddings that you see all over Pinterest. So I think just, having a planner to help you guide you to that. If you have a good planner by your side, they're gonna look at your Pinterest board, they're gonna look at your guest count, and they're gonna tell you, maybe that budget is not good for that, or maybe try this or that. I think that's key to having a stress and happy wedding.
Hmm. Yeah, you have another great video where you kind of have five kind of topics that you and your husband discussed to help people. And one of them was making a budget, preparing for the unexpected. And you kind of walk through that process, which is so important because, last thing I want to get into the story shortly, but last thing people want to do is just stress out on the day of.
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of things that happen. Even for me, I was kind of shocked. There's like sometimes there's the family drama or the
Hmm.
rain, trying to decide, if you're gonna move your ceremony indoors or outdoors. What does that look like? There's a lot of things that and it's just a lot of pressure. It's in a very emotional day, for like the whole year before your wedding. That's like what you do at your spare time.
Hmm.
You're investing so much money, so much time and energy that just it's a lot, and just having someone there to help you is amazing, and I would definitely suggest it.
One of my friends was married a while back, and I remember the florist that he had hired, and he and his wife were had some suggestions, and the florist insisted, and she said, "I will see what the flowers tell me that morning, and decide then." Have you ever heard? Have you ever
Right.
heard of anything like this?
That would never fly with my brides. Like, they would not. I think they would just have a panic attack. Like, I don't know. Good for your friend for trusting that florist. I mean, my brides trust me a lot. Like, they really do. I mean, but I get to really know my clients, and I get it. Like I say to them, I'm like, I speak bride, so I get it. And but they need to know kind of like what they're getting, at least a little bit. It's hard to really explain or show exactly what it's going to look like, because every wedding is tailored, of course, unless it's something that's super basic, like, all white roses and greenery. Fine, that's great. But a lot of our clients have different styles and different visions and budgets. But what we do is just like show them a vision board, and hey, it's not exact, but this is kind of what your wedding is going to look like. And I think that's important. And I think that, I mean, I respect him. Maybe he's more of an artist than like a florist. And I'm not saying that, I consider myself a florist or an artist. But I don't know. I don't think I could do that. That wouldn't fly.
It definitely was amusing, and I noticed the themes that you have, like fantasy chandelier, which my girlfriend went crazy for. She loves chandelier, and you have like Miami Vice, where and it has, So when you talk to, you said you speak bride. Do you have dinner with them? How do you get a feel for what they want? How do you understand, or do they know? Most times they know I want this. Like, what's that art process like?
So I think, you know, all brides know what they want. Some really don't, and they'll say that. But
Hmm.
they'll say, I know what I want, but I don't know how to explain it, or I can't find the photos. Like,
Hmm.
so when you, like, let's say, I spoke to a bride today, and I'll ask first I ask them about themselves, like their relationship. How did they meet? How long have they been together? They send me a Pinterest board, so I get to see kind of already what their style is. And then we go from there. A lot of the times is,
Hmm.
like the Miami Vice one was a perfect example. What was in her Pinterest board was very different from what you saw at her wedding. Not
Hmm.
different in the sense of, like, it was still tropical flowers, but she's like, I really like Miami Vice. I just don't want it to be tacky, but I like that look. And Miami Vice can go very tacky very quickly. So, over time, we just became friends. She did invite me with her. I did go to dinner. She invited me to her tasting. But it was just like, the few times that we had spoken, we really just jived really well. And, sometimes I'll start something and I'm like, hey, I saw this and it just reminded me of you. Like, are you open to this? And they'll be like, yes, I love that. And I'm like, well, I can do that, but maybe not as much, in that wedding in particular, it had spray painted greenery. There's like this spray paint that's very specific to flowers and greenery. And I showed her a picture of that. And I'm like, I could do that, but not as much. So it's not so I wouldn't say not over the top, but just super colorful, still elegant. So I just really get to know my clients. And then, from then on, I sometimes they have almost I can't tell you how many times I've had a bride send me like four different types of bouquets and I'd have to make sense of it. And then when I get
Hmm.
to the wedding and I show them, they're like, I don't know how the hell you knew what I wanted, but this is perfect.
Wow.
So yeah, I guess I practice.
Yeah. How much of that process is art versus science? It seems to me you're using a lot of your gut there. You're getting a feeling for them. Like you said, sometimes you spend extra time with them. I see how technology is useful, Pinterest, because they're posting stuff that they like. So you're kind of gathering these different sources and making a determination. It seems like it's mostly art.
Mostly art, yeah. I mean, there is a science, like, because the mechanics of it. I think that's something that people don't
Mm,
realize. It's actually it can be very hard. Like for us, there's some florists that they don't do arches, or they're just put the flowers on the arches. For us, we do a lot of it. We have our own arches that we put up. And here in Miami, you have to make sure that they could withstand the wind. Also, like
hmm,
tall centerpieces outdoors, sometimes they're not the best because if it's windy and we're talking about hurricane type winds here in Miami. And then there's just like that chandelier. The chandelier would take a lot of time, a lot of processing. And then also, just the mechanics of it. That I had never done one before. That was my first one. And I
hmm.
just kind of did it and it came out gorgeous. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's another thing is just the mechanics of everything. We even bouquets. Some bouquets I use what's called an egg, which is just a wire egg, and then sometimes I do like a hand tied. So there's a lot of different ways to do things, a lot of different techniques, a lot of different styles. I think that's what makes us strong as a company is that we do a lot of different styles, which I love because I never get bored. But yeah, and then the art is also something that I grew up with. My dad was a gardener, and I would spend my time in his garden, and I loved flowers, and I used to arrange flowers, and I would
Hmm.
give people flowers all the time to show my love. So I think just and being always loving weddings, just naturally I became a wedding florist.
Who would think a Bridgeport here in excuse me, a garden here in Bridgeport would produce such a great artist like yourself? It's great to hear.
Thank you, thank you.
Something so local. And does the spouse are you generally working with one person and they're kind of constructing it, or does I can't imagine it's like some men probably aren't interested and it's usually the bride in that particular case. Is that do you ever work with both of them and they both have strong opinions and they may be differing?
Yes. So like most of the time it is the bride. I think, I think that people assume that the groom doesn't care about the wedding. I think
Hmm.
that grooms do. I think they just care about certain things. Like maybe their thing is more entertainment. Maybe their
Hmm.
thing is dress code or the music or the food. But I have had grooms that are very, very involved. I like it. I've always liked I have some of the nicest grooms. Like it's either I have someone who's really really nice or one that's really really quiet. Um, but yeah, some of them have really strong opinions. Um, Usually about very like I would say little things. I've never had a groom that was over. Not overbearing. I would say, or
Hmm.
I've never had a bride and groom like. Very rarely have I seen them kind of go back and forth, but it's always about something very small. But yeah, sometimes the groom is very involved. A lot of the time, a lot of my grooms are just more supportive of their bride, and a lot of my brides love flowers. So to them, it's very important. So they usually get more choice in the matter, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly seems so. So the first story I want to talk about, and I don't want to spoil the end, but the mother of the groom did not like, no, the mother of the bride did not like the groom. She was told that broke up. She found out. She went to the wedding and did something quite heinous to the groom.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do
That
you
was
want to
an
talk about
interesting one.
this?
Yeah. So this wasn't my wedding. This was like something that was told to me like from a planner. And she told me that it was crazy. She actually wasn't there when it happened. But you would be surprised of how much pushback some I think what happens in weddings is, what I say is we are the brides of our lives. And sometimes it's hard to give up your little boy or little girl to someone else. And sometimes you have high expectations of what that's going to be like. And then sometimes, I noticed that when I got married, there was a transition in the sense of, I wouldn't, power is the wrong word, but I guess it's a good example, in a sense of he's no longer my little boy. And at the end of the day, when everything, when the world crumbles, the people that are going to be there for you is your family. And what happens is when you get married, you become one family, and it's very hard for people, and the stress of a wedding, the emotion of a wedding.
Mm.
To be honest, we went through something very similar, and it was very hard to cope with even after the wedding. And in the sense of, a parent just want being able to give control and not being able to be the center of the universe to that person's life, and it's very hard. Yeah.
Now, this particular mother came to the wedding and shot in the leg the groom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The groom ended up being okay. It always reminds me of, so I'm Puerto Rican, and my mom used to always watch novelas. And let me tell you, that
Yes.
story always plays out. It's always this huge Catholic church. But usually what happens is that the mom shoots the wrong person, and then it ends up shooting their child by accident.
Oh
So I'm
boy.
I'm more surprised that that's not what happened in this circumstance. But I can imagine. This happened a very long time ago. This planner is like pretty old in the industry, and I'm not even sure if that happened in Florida. But yeah, it was pretty intense. I couldn't imagine something like that happening in our weddings, the ones that we do here. But yeah, it was pretty interesting.
Now, wedding planning, the whole industry and the vendors that support it, is it mainly women dominated?
Yes. Yes. A lot of the time it is. I think it depends too on what that looks like. When it comes to like planning, it's mostly women. Florists, there's a lot of women, but there's also men, usually gay men. And then there's also like, I think when it comes to the men, it's more like DJ and production and
Mm.
catering, things like that. But there is a lot of women. But I think it's usually because um women they just have a big heart, and they care a lot about not just love but details. And weddings are very detail oriented, so I think that's why. And I think just, for since it's usually the bride doing a lot of the planning, it's easier to talk to like your girlfriend, you know? I think that's
Mm.
something that kind of helps me out, is that, being that token, gay, like the brides like love me because we just kind of like sit down and kiki and, but yeah, it is mostly women in the industry.
Now, you had something particularly terrible happen at your wedding. Somebody left a terrible comment, homophobic comment, and you decided not to lash out, but to kind of discuss it on posts. You want to talk about that at all? It was terrible.
Yeah. So, to be honest, I'm no this wouldn't be the first time something has happened. As a gay man, especially come growing up in a very urban area, I've had dealt with discrimination my whole life. And even to my surprise, when we were planning our wedding, we went through something very sad in a sense of we went to go see a venue, and I sometimes sound some people will mistaken me as a woman on the phone. So when I
Hmm.
said me and my partner are going, and my name is Chris and Jeremy,
Ah,
they thought maybe it was like a Christina or whatever. And so when we show up, first of all, there was like this big sign that said Mr. and Miss. And we're like, that was like a big red flag because,
oh boy.
no venue in Miami is really going to have that, no inclusive venue. And it became very awkward after that. It was very apparent that they were uncomfortable. And that was like my first experience as, a groom or bridegroom or whatever you want to call it. But after our wedding, our video was posted, which it was a really nice video. It got a lot of
Beautiful.
views. It
It's
actually went
beautiful.
viral on TikTok.
Yeah.
And a vendor, he was a DJ, and I think like Orlando or somewhere in North Florida. And he said, "Why would you promote a fag wedding?" And when I saw the comment, I don't know, it felt I guess I wasn't surprised. It was hurtful. I was a little, I guess, like I was angry in the sense of like the balls that this person had, especially because they're a vendor, because it's your name out there. I think that this person, is maybe fighting their own demons. Maybe they have their own, maybe some homosexual thoughts or whatever the case may be.
Mm.
But I spoke out because it's important for this not to happen to someone else. And I would never go after someone's livelihood or anything like that. But I could only imagine if that person was hired at a friend's wedding, for example, and I showed up with my husband, and you don't know if this person has an alcohol or drug problem or just really an anger problem and starts spilling out these slurs at this wedding. It would only hurt me, but also the client, the bride and groom, that this person ruined their special day. So it was very important. I did speak up. Did have a lot of people in the industry rally with us, and it was very heartwarming, all the love that we received. But it's very shocking that even in this day and age, there's still a lot of pushback and discrimination that still happens.
It's terrible. What was your reaction with the wedding cake case that went all the way to the Supreme Court? I know you discussed a little bit on one of your podcasts.
So I was very new to the industry, I believe, at that point. This is because it's been a long time.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I was very conflicted in the beginning because as a business owner, we want to pick and choose like who we work with and things like that. But then as a gay man, and not just as a gay man, as a Hispanic man, as just someone who is a very loving individual, I just don't think that it's okay to just discriminate against anyone. It's a special day, and at the end, it was a cake, like,
Mm,
I mean, I say it like this, like, if somebody were to have different views about, like, let's say religion or politics is a really good example,
mm.
and they wanted to hire me as a florist, I would never push them away. As long as they respected me and my boundaries, I really don't care what you do behind closed doors or what you believe in. As long as you love and respect me, that's fine. And I think that that's kind of like what I feel, is that I understand that maybe somebody might feel uncomfortable. However, I think that as a business owner, you shouldn't discriminate against anyone, no matter what color skin they have, no matter who they love, no matter where they're from.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we started the conversation, more love would really heal that. Would really, really heal that. Uh, another another great story that you told was I forget who it was. I think the mother of the bride called the facility and told them that the wedding was off.
Oh, that was the one that I experienced. I wasn't there. I wasn't the planner or anything like that. But I was doing that wedding. It was actually the sister of the groom, and it was really, I mean, that was the craziest wedding that I've ever experienced in my life. I'm surprised I didn't start seeing a therapist right after that. But she, she called in, and at first, people in the industry, we talk. I mean, we don't usually like gossip about our brides and grooms, like not at all. But I mean, something like that, it's like, hey, red flag, the sister of the groom pretended to be the bride and cancel the wedding. And then just it spiraled out of control after that. A week before the wedding, the groom also tried to cancel. That I definitely was a part of, because at the time I took my last deposits a week before, which now we changed that. Now it's a month. But he, it was time for him to pay, and he's like, "Well, we might not go through the wedding." And then a really traumatic situation happened at the wedding that really just shook everyone to the core. It was really, really sad, but hopefully, I mean, hopefully they're okay now. Everything worked out in the end, I guess. But for the wedding, it did go through, and it was a beautiful wedding.
Was this the wedding with the dog incident?
Yes, yes. So this was a venue. That it's a villa. It's gorgeous. I almost got married there. And it's one of my favorite venues. It was really hot. It was in August. And so then I'm like recording this fountain that I had just put flowers on, and all of a sudden this dog just like dropped from the sky, like literally, like I was just like boo, and starts screeching, crying. Like I see like a little blood on the floor, and the dog is just like, it was kind of weird, but it was so much in pain that it was like going like this all over the floor. And I did never saw the dog enter the venue. I never knew there was a dog at the wedding. He was wearing like this like bow tie thing with like a shirt. And so I'm just like, oh my
This
God.
is indoor? Is this
This is
indoor or
outdoor.
outdoor?
So there was like
Okay,
it's like a building, it's two floors, but in the middle
okay.
there's a courtyard.
I
So the
see.
dog fell from the second floor of the bridal suite. And luckily there was a tent, because it was like, with here in August, we get like when it rains, it pours. So it's like it'll
Right.
be like super like hot, really sunny, and then all of a sudden there'll just be a downpour. So they had a tent in the courtyard. So luckily the dog that kind of fell on the tent first, so that kind of dropped the initial fall,
Broke the
but then
fall,
it
yeah.
fell into stone. And so the dog is screaming. The groom comes out. He's like, do something. And I'm just like, I'm a florist. I don't know what to do. I didn't know this dog was here. I'm just like, call 911. I don't know. It was very traumatic. It was sad to see too. So
Of
the
course.
groom grabbed the dog, and went to the vet. The wedding was postponed by like, I believe it was like in like 2 hours. And then the groom came back. It was very emotional. The bride almost passed out on the stairs. I had to like run up and grab her. And they calmed her down, everything else. 2 hours later, groom comes, they start the ceremony. And come to find out, the person that was supposed to be taking care of that dog was the groom's sister that tried to cancel. And she was the
Ugh,
one who was supposed to be watching the dog, which why would you do that? But I guess they did it as punishment. I don't know. Maybe she threw the dog. Who knows? I doubt it, because she was crying. But it was very traumatic. And the other part of the story that I actually never said in my podcast was that they actually never really got married. They had the ceremony, but the paperwork never went through. They never actually went through the physical marriage. Maybe they did, but I mean, this was like, I know about this like a month after that, they still hadn't, and this officiant reached out to the bride, and she was nowhere to be found. So who's to say they actually did go through the marriage? I personally wouldn't, if my dog had fell like the second floor the day of my wedding. But I really do wish the couple the best, and also the dog, which luckily the dog survived. So
I can't imagine the. I mean, how do I ask this? I mean, do you see couples sometimes and think, no, nope, nope,
To be honest, no.
good.
Never, like, maybe in so for me it's hard because like sometimes like I'll see the couples really quickly and then sometimes I'm very involved. I've seen it in back before I, had the business that I have now. I would freelance. So that I would see, like you could kind of see it where it's awkward during the ceremony. There's a lot of tension, things like that. But honestly, I've been really lucky with my couples. I've seen my couples. I think whatever you put out in the world, you attract. So like for the most part, I don't get bridezillas. I don't get groomzillas. They look very, very much in love. The families, you see a little, maybe sometimes a little tension with the families. Not, it's not any way, shape, or form that they are like angry or resentful or anything like that. It's just, it's emotions are high and they want everything to be perfect. So no, I personally, I've like never seen that in our weddings. Thank God.
When selecting yeah, thank goodness. I love to hear that. I love love as well. When someone is picking out a wedding florist, what should they look for in a good one versus a bad one?
Style. I think that not Pinterest, Instagram is a really strong um, tool because
Hmm.
not only do you get to know the person's style, but their personality, if they're really good with marketing, they'll show their face. You'll get to feel their personality through their posts, through what they say. So I think first and foremost, like really looking at the client, the florist style and what they do, and if you like it, if you gravitate towards it, and then using that also to get to know the florist. Some florists don't post as much. I'm a person that does. So a lot of my brides, like, they sometimes like love me. Like they, maybe they didn't even reach out right away and they become like kind of like a fangirl and they're like, oh my God, I love your work. You're funny. And I've like listened to your podcasts and things like that. So it's an easy transition, when I meet the person and we jive really well and I know their personality and their style. But for someone who's not like me, go for the style and then speak to the florist and get to feel out. Not I'm not for every bride and groom. Maybe I'm a little bit too bubbly. Some people are just very straightforward and they just want to say this is what I want. That's it. And there's a florist out there for you.
Very interesting. You also talk highly about meditation.
Oh yeah, I just meditated like an hour ago. My job is can be very stressful. I think owning your own business in general is very can be very stressful because
Hmm.
in the end, if something's going on in my life, I can't just call out. I can't take a sick day, and and it's a lot of pressure. I really care about what I do. It's supposed to be the happiest day of your life. I bring a lot of joy, so I need to be very clear headed. I need to keep my anxiety on check, and that is what keeps me sane and happy. And it helps me manifest. I feel like it helped me manifest the love of my life, my business.
Hmm.
So I really do think that meditation has changed my life.
I'm fortunate I get to talk to a lot of very creative people like yourself and positive people, and overwhelming theme is meditation. People just take the time. And when you do it, is it assisted? Is it unassisted? Do you have a specific time of day? Do you do it when you're stressed out? Like when do you do it and
So
how?
for the most part, so like I mean I fall off here and there. Like sometimes I usually try to meditate every day. I don't really do it on like the weekends or Sometimes on event days, it's like I can't sit still. Like, there's no way
Mm,
that I'm going to be able to sit there and meditate. But even though my meditations are very short, but usually I do it like after a workout, right before I'm gonna start really like my day. And but then there's some times where, like, lately I there's been a lot going on. We've had a death in the family. So
I'm sorry.
thank you. So like today, it happened at a very weird hour. And it was just I was just feeling off. I've been really tired. I haven't been really sleeping well. And I'm like, you know what? I need to heal a little bit. And I just give myself those 10-15 minutes, and I meditate, and I just love myself for a little bit. So
Mm,
I think that, like, people assume or think that meditation is perfect, because it's not. Like, when I like if I haven't meditated for a long time and I start meditating again, it actually takes me a little bit to get back into really being able to do it. Like, I'm very fidgety the first two times, or sometimes I get right back into it and it's amazing. So it is a practice, but like what works for me doesn't work for everyone. I like to lay down. I like to be covered with a blanket. I turn on an incense and I lay down. Like, for other people, it might be just sitting down. I Back in our old place, I had this huge bathtub, and I used to meditate in there. So
mm.
I think it's just giving yourself that time, to just love yourself a little bit, and giving yourself that peace. That's important.
It really centers. Yeah, I did it for a long time and I started again, and I find it just so much clarity right afterwards. Do you still cry at all the weddings that you do?
Oh yeah, I don't get to see the ceremony all the time. A lot of the time, we set
Mm,
up and we leave. We pay our team by the hour. So I'm not gonna like go into the ceremony and just kind of like sit there. And plus, I have like a bright, see, like my little shirt. It's kind of bright here, so I'm not trying to get in the pictures or anything like that with this bright pink lettering. But when we do get to see the ceremony, I don't know what it is. I just cry like a baby. I've always I was like a Disney kid, loved fairy tales, and it's a very beautiful, beautiful thing. I like to celebrate love with flowers, and I think I really do believe that's why I was brought into this world, and I'm very passionate about that. And just to see these love stories unfold is very, very beautiful.
I'll tell you one thing, Chris. The video of your husband playing piano and you giving him that hug put tears in my eyes. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Chris Plaza, I love what you do. You're bringing so much joy to people. Thank you so much for time today. Tell us how we can get in touch with you. Your great podcast, Dear Bride Candy. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. You're amazing, and it's been a privilege.
Thank you.
I've had such a good time. For us, if you want to see our website, it's thebridecandy.com. On Instagram, the bride candy, and then on also on our Instagram is a link to our podcast if you want to get check that out. And then also on Facebook is also the bride candy. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Fantastic. And the word candy, the bride candy. How'd you come up with that?
And it was a hashtag. I was going through a
Uh,
little bit of an identity crisis with my industry. My main color was like light blue. It was my whole name, which is super long, with Christopher Plaza Florals. And I used to do like these fun hashtags. And my husband was the one who actually thought of the hashtag. And I was like, I love it. And one day I thought of this new branding, which was the bride candy, and everything was pink, and it was, more my personality. And one day I had a few drinks, told my friend about it, and he was like, I think you should do it. And so I rebranded my whole company, and then from then on, I became the bride candy.
Sounds like a perfect transition. And that's the other thing with your videos. I almost felt like having a glass of wine when I was talking to you because it seems to be another theme there. And
Oh yeah.
just
I'm on a cleanse right now, so I didn't have any
I say,
wine.
I say, I say, Chris Plaza, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks again, and I look forward to maybe sitting and having a glass with wine with you in the future.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You take care.
Bye
Okay, bye
now.
bye.